Hello and welcome to the discussion on understanding the spoken discourse. Participants of Language Across Curriculum course, we are discussing a lot of aspects on spoken language, spoken discourse in the classroom, as it happens in the classroom naturally, sometimes guided by teacher or facilitated by the teacher. We as teachers need to understand the spoken discourse, also make children aware of or draw their attention towards how spoken discourse happens and how one can be a good participant of a discourse. That is what we are going to do in this understanding the spoken discourse. Spoken discourse, teachers, prospective teachers, what is language? Language, we know that is social, language is for communication. But how language works? Language is primarily spoken. Letters came later, text came later, we all know that. Orality is the essential and common characteristics of any community, any human. Speech, of course, is continuous, interconnected. If I speak disconnected, not so well connected sentences, I will be either called as foolish, stupid person or crazy person, mad, because he does not make any sense. We immediately say stupid person. Also, speech is not simply sounds of words, sentences. It is not only words or combination of sounds into words. It's sentences, ideas. It's also gestures, symbols, emotions. That's what people call it pragmatics. Language is used for pragmatic purposes. Children learn the infancy within 1 year, 2 years through pragmatics, through emotions, cuddling, speaking, loving words, sometimes anger. So, that is what we call it a speech act. Speech is not just speech sitting here the way I deliver, but even here I am conveying some acts. So, this is how speech happens. And there is difference, of course, two entities called spoken language and written language. Written language is more formal. Written language can also be like spoken language. We listen to people and respond. We read to respond to the text in speech as well as in writing. We speak formally, informally, and on occasions, and we speak to the occasion. Suppose you go to a marriage party, we speak differently. We go to a funeral, we speak differently. All of these occur in situations, contexts, and with people. What else is involved in our spoken language? All those things I have just listed. Of course, there are two ways the speech happens. We speak to people by responding to them, wishing them. At least two people are involved in any speech minimum. Otherwise, if I just speak to myself, maybe that is intra-communication, not interpersonal intercommunication. And if I keep on speaking all alone, people will think that I am a different kind of person, maybe crazy person. Some occasions we speak to give instructions, make presentations. So, look at it. Speech can be interactional, means with people, and it can be just passing on information. We interact, dialogue, we converse and we discuss with people, even quarrel with people. This is interaction. We transact. The circular says this, someone reads out to you. All members of staff of this department are required to submit their bills on something latest by Friday 4 o'clock. Information is not, and some announcements, notice. So, how does the spoken language develop in children? Language competence depends on fluency, clarity, sensitivity, which gets honed over a time. You know that I am not speaking the way I was speaking as a child. I have improved my language. When I speak in a forum, or when I speak to my seniors, my own peers in office or in school, what I do is the language keeps improving to the occasion. So, language development happens engagement with language and language use over the time, and it gets honed, means refined. What is the key word? Engagement. What are we engaged with? When we use language, we engage with people, we engage with the language, we engage with ideas. All three have to go together. Sometimes we have no ideas, what can we speak? And language also cannot exist without any ideas. Even if you have to speak on no idea, the no idea is the idea. Suppose some say speak on nonsense. You have to make sense from nonsense. So, engagement with the idea, people and language. Look at it. What are the features of spoken discourse? Okay. When I read out, let us say that these are the slides of this. We listen to people and respond, it's complete thing. But when I do a discourse, dialogue with people, it's not necessarily complete sentences, phrases. Suppose when say you go out, even I will say could you borrow your pen? Can I borrow your pen? You say have it. So, the speech acts and the language use, non-verbal communication may be planned. For example, spoken discourse is composed of phrases, short sentences, may be planned or not planned also. In a conversation, has more generic words as compared to written language. And look at it, when I speak, I speak general words. But when I write an academic series, let us say Einstein's theory of relativity, that's become not very generic specific, only science students can understand. And all the discourses involve reciprocity, that means people have to respond to it, and it shows variation, sometimes smile, sometimes grim face, sometimes formal, sometimes casual, informal. So, look at it. Before we move on to spoken discourse, how language develops, some of the theoretical understanding by Creation, Long and Swine. Look at it, in classroom situation some input is given. What are the inputs we have seen in previous lectures also? One is the text in the form of textbook or anywhere, teacher's language and peer language, peer friendship, anything can be input. It may be visual, it may be radio news, television news. Then that is essential for a language classroom, but that is not sufficient. That is what people said. People have to work with, make meaning out of the text, ideas given, and talk to people, dialogue, interactions. Then that leads to language production. So, how that happens? We have seen how the inputs are given and language learning takes place. Sometimes one output, some children have produced, commented and spoken, that becomes again input for other learners or himself to interview to speak language. Sometimes input straight away we need to language output without even interaction. This is how language learning happens. This is what who have said it. This is what Creation's theory based on Chomskyan ideas. He developed language level of the learner is I, slightly above their level should be given in second language context the text. That is what input is, but it is not sufficient. That is what Creation said, input. But Long said no, it is not sufficient, people have to talk, work with that. Then he said, oh, that actually will lead to output, Swine. The output is performance, it is not that linear way, participants still understand, it is a kind of process which happens. Look at it, I am going to really develop activities for speaking as a teacher. What will I do? Select a text and based on which develop speaking activities. Let NCERT textbook, language textbook, you must have noticed in some classes what we have done is having read 3 paragraphs or 2 paragraphs, one idea of the story, the oral comprehension check. Children have to read the questions and discuss among themselves. Then information gap activities. It is very popular and very effective for language learning as well as any learning, kind of gap filling, close kind of activities in which every fifth word, fourth word is dropped for language learning. Some important ideas in science experiments, reaction, how it happens is given as blank, and children have to supply based on that. And of course, discussion is the most common thing, but how children are learning to discuss is important. Gentle encourage. Your teacher gives something, then children keep asking something. So, out of curiosity, and grand conversation, come on, let us sit and dialogue. Here is a topic like group discussion nowadays in companies one, how good the person is in negotiation. And sometimes you must have noticed in civil service examinations and other examinations, one particular idea is given, concept is given, people have to give 2 arguments in favor, 2 arguments against, but that argument has to be sound and structured. I am saying environment is in danger, say yes, 2 points, no, 2 points. Nuclear energy efforts, nuclear testing is not required, you can close down all the nuclear stations, power stations, give 2 points for, 2 points against. So, then what happens, speaking becomes serious. Then across the curricular activity for pronunciation, say it right, some of the words. So, psychology, psychological, give the words ending with LOGY, then learners can pronounce it correctly. Look at it, there are many things. One can imagine and devise activities. Dear participants, I am going to give you 2 such some activities to generate speaking. Here is a sequence from a story with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 frames. I am going to give you maybe 1 minute. You have to produce 5 sentences for each frame. Participants, look at it, if you give it to in class 7 or even class 4 or class 10 children, that there are 4 children in a group, each one has to describe a frame, one frame with 5 sentences, there is a binding, it may be in any language. So, they will be observing there and take turn and describe the story. Now, many things are possible through this activity. Firstly, the second speaker, the person who the learner who describes has to connect with the first person's description. So, coherence is created. Then as a whole a story is created. What is the input? Visual. Now, look at it, I am going to take you further to some more activity. This is we call it think aloud protocol. Here is a riddle. A farmer returns from the market where he bought a she goat, a cabbage and a wolf. What a crazy market. On the way home, he must cross a river. His boat is small and won't fit more than one of his purchases. He cannot leave the she goat alone with the cabbage because goat will eat the cabbage. Nor he can leave the she goat alone with the wolf because wolf will eat the goat. Now, you have to help the farmer to cross the river, but condition is one thing only can be taken to the other side of the river. Now, it is easy to solve, any child can solve, but you will have to speak out as you solve. How? In the first trip, the farmer will take this and comes back. The second trip he does or brings back, like that you have to speak. Then you will understand what you are actually doing. This is called think aloud protocol. So, here is the riddle for you, solve it. Next, again another riddle, slightly difficult. Parents with 2 children, a son and a daughter, came to a wide river. There was no bridge there. The only way to get the other side of the river was to ask the fisherman if he could lend them his boat. However, the boat could carry, however however, the boat could carry only one adult or two children. How does the family get to the other side and return the boat to the fisherman? Again, you have to use first trip, second trip and speak to yourself. As you solve it, you speak yourself. This is called think aloud protocol. I think you have done it, otherwise keep trying. Look at it. What are the other ways we can really enable learners to speak? Here is a role play speaking activity. Your father, your mother, a class 12 student, her teacher, a neighbor are to play their role in a discussion on the excess use of mobile phones by young people. Look at it. One of the students, there will be a father, mother, a student, teacher and 5 people are required. Make 5 people group and assign them the roles. You are the father, you are the mother, you are the student, you are the teacher, you are the neighbor. Now, tell them what kind of language each one will be using. You may even give clues in writing. You are the father, you speak like this. You are worried about your child's excess use of phone. Mother is also worried, but she wants to support the child to some extent. And teacher is of course very strict. Neighbor is considerate. So now each one is given some input. In the input, they have to speak out, display, perform language. It's a kind of discourse in which they speak out their opinions, their arguments. What are we going to make them understand? They have to brainstorm ideas, put into language and speak. Then as they speak, they have to wait for taking turns, let some person complete, then maybe the father or the teacher leads the role play. So, the lot of language is spoken. Then having done that, let them revisit and comment on, oh, he spoke too much, he did not let me speak and I think I could have spoken more, I should have waited for others. So, this is what kind of meta analysis of what you have done. So, role plays help immensely in improving spoken language in the classroom. How will we understand and deal with multilingual classroom and the way classroom discourse happens there? Teachers in all Indian classrooms are multilingual, bilingual, at least 2 languages, more than 2 languages exist. And in English medium, the state language medium, the majority language of the state also remains prevalent and many more languages. In pockets where minor tribal language children come and there may be 7-8 languages. I have seen that some of the places in Jharkhand and Andhra Pradesh and Odisha, Mizoram, Arunachal, you will find 20 languages in one classroom. You can't expect children to speak one language or 2 languages only, like code switching or moving. No, there may be 5 languages used at a time. So, how will we understand that first of all, and how then design activities. So, you can't stop it unless otherwise they are strict, it's in English medium school. In science is no, even if you think it, even if you try it, that is actually not correct from human rights point of view as well as pedagogical point of view, that will not be possible. In that case, to create a discourse, let us legitimize, ask children, you speak in any language you like to, with others will understand, or one child may use 3 languages, we call it trans-languaging as pedagogy nowadays. So, that is one thing for your reflection. Second thing is, I am a teacher, I control everybody, I have the power, but okay, there must be some regulations in the classroom, but when I do an activity, I am a co-participant. But is there a power structure exist in the classroom which influences the learner's language and actions? Definitely yes. If you go back to Paulo Freire's saying that teacher is the all powerful knowledge giver, banking theory. I am the bank of knowledge, storehouse of knowledge. That makes them, whatever I say is right. No. So, when you design an activity, please reflect on that. Then look at it, informal language versus formal language. In a discourse, in a spoken performance, dialogue conversation, the language has to be informal, but let learners understand that this also helps them to the learners attention towards language is dynamic, it varies context to context. So, those kind of activities. So, now we have been trying to understand how the spoken discourse happens in the classroom, in the school, and how learners can enable themselves to participate in the discourses in a meaningful way, thereby their language proficiency improves, understanding cognitive development happens, understanding on the concepts and ideas subjects happen. In all this, the undercurrent is participation of each and every one, the maximum participation of learners. In that case, as a teacher, I must understand the purpose of language used by learners in a discourse, how that will enable learners to acquire, learn languages and to master, learn the concepts. We have said, I also have said, ideas cannot exist without language, or through some medium. Ideas can be conveyed in visual, and language requires an idea or medium to be conveyed. So, the intertwining nature of language and thought, language and idea has to be understood by the learners. If I have to say something, I have to think about it. So, it involves thinking, inferring, manipulating, then I speak. So, this understanding a teacher has to develop in order to enable learners to use language for pragmatic purposes. And another thing, let me also tell you, teachers here, that in each language we use in two different ways. One is when I go out and speak to my friends, hi, how are you, hello, or at home to my people. When I come to office or when I come to school and this kind of discussions, I use a kind of formal, some sort of kind of refined language maybe, and appropriate language, but both the variations are accepted because they serve the purpose. This is what we call pragmatics. Let learners know it. The first one is language of here and now. We call it basic interpersonal communication skills. This is what Cumming calls it. Hello, how are you? Have you done this work? At what time bell rings? Have you watched this movie? These are all day-to-day purposes. This is basic interpersonal communication skills. The other one is cognitive academic language. Cognitive academic language is I am writing physics, I am reading physics, I am doing physics, I am doing computer technology, computer science or rocket technology, or I am creating a documentary. There the language is specific academic purpose, abstract thinking. E is equal to mc square. If someone has to explain it, it is abstract thinking. What is the speed of light from this to that when a rocket goes? So, these are all specific content subjects which require an understanding of the subject and particular words kind of language is used. This is we call it CALP, cognitive advanced language proficiency, basic interpersonal. So, a learner has to move from the first level to the other level in a formal classroom in an academic environment, but at the same time the learner has to use both in a classroom discourse. This is how a teacher can understand the spoken discourse for a classroom, in a classroom. Let us watch some of the discussions which happen in Parliament of India, State Assembly, some other states are available. Is that how people speak? And even I will suggest you watch some of the interviews and talk shows done by all the channels, many channels, whether it is English channel, Hindi channel, any language. You will see that how the interviewer, the anchor, takes out words from the person who gives interview. Sometimes he puts the words into his mouth and he provokes him, so that the idea he wants comes out. So, this is what a kind of engaging dialogue discourse, and you may have watched simply lecture, maybe religious lecture or political lecture or literary lecture by poets or religious leaders or political leaders. There also you will see that they are creating a stories after stories, and they create a discourse which occupies our mind, the listener's mind. This is how a classroom teacher has to understand spoken discourse and create activities like the way some of the things we have seen here. You can watch them, the think aloud protocol activity of riddle and the picture. You have seen that just describing it is like in the good old days picture composition, but I am using it for speaking rather than writing. Then how a teacher can analyze the textbook activities and convert into other form of activities. All right, I am going to recapitulate and give one task for you. First is understand spoken discourse is dynamic, varied, and it can be generated through various inputs, and language is basically informal speech. Then also devise and design activities in such a way that learners do it in groups and participate. That is what participants. Let me give you a task. Do a task. Design some speaking activities following the way I suggest. Provide an input to the speaking activity across the subject. Pick up one speaking activity. So, let me say that is for social science. Ask them to visit some of the old buildings of the village, maybe a temple, a mosque, a church or something, maybe the Panchayat union building, office building, or one Jamindar's building or landlord's building, anything, some monuments. Collect them, let children go in groups, and there may be a river, a canal passing through, there may be a small, what do we call it nowadays, bed dam like things, or go and talk to the village elders, old people, grandfathers, how agriculture was 50 years ago, how politics was, who was their political leader. Then make them into groups and send them, then let them come back to the class, discuss what and all they brought. They may discuss in their language, English. Then set time and goal. What you are going to do is, you are going to write, speak, discuss among yourselves and present to the whole class, or write in 2 pages, 3 pages, whatever you have done during your visit to the school. This kind of one kind of activity. Another is, what we have done in some places in Karnataka was, we have asked children to explore their own history, one's own history, and we asked them, their father and mother they know, their brothers and sisters they know, grandfather they know, their brothers sisters to some extent, grandfather's father most of them do not know, even I do not know. Then I told them, you go to the elders in the village, talk to them, find out the village has any great events happened and about your grandfather. Then some of them were able to trace their previous 5th generation, 8th generation people, from where they came, from where they came, how they have done. So, many such things. So, dear participants, it is in your hand to create a spoken discourse in the classroom. I also said in the previous lessons, you design an activity in which what are your pre-task activities before doing, and what are the pre-tasks for children, learners, then what will they do while they are doing, and what will you do as a teacher. Then after having done that, what will they do, and you will. So, pre-task, post-task, while task. If you divide that will really help you to promote meaningful way spoken discourse in the classroom. I will stop it there. I hope that you are reading, you have read the materials of the university, and these are all supplementing them. So, I have not dealt with what and all there in the materials. You will be reading and this will be supplementing, and make an understanding of how language, spoken language, and how listening happens, how writing happens, how to decode a text, that will help you in designing your activity. So, thank you very much for having listened to me so far. We will meet you in another lesson some other time. Till then, take care.